Stand Up.
Hello and welcome to the Friday episode of Stand Up. I like to call it Stand Up Light because I don't do the news segment on Fridays because I hang out with you on Thursday night. That is if you are a Stand Up community member. And if you're not, why not? StandUpWithPete.com right now. Sign up and join us on Thursday nights. Always have a great hangout, usually for about 2 hours. And so I don't get to do the news, but I do have an awesome show for you today. And what a week of shows it has been. Thank you very much for joining me this week. Really great feedback on yesterday's program with Rick Ridgway and listener Ryan in Kansas. So thank you very much for your insights, your input. Learned a lot from you this week about what else we can do here with this show. So thank you very much. I think you're going to like what I've got cooking for you today. Brian Kahn of Earth, or one of my favorite and one of the best climate journalists out there, just back from COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland, and he joins me. We had a great conversation. Been way too long since he joined me on the program, and for the first time I had Christian Finnegan and Ophira Eisenberg on together because we are trying to book some dates together, and we thought it would be fun, Christian and I, to bring Ophira into the conversation. So we did, and it was an awesome, fun, thoughtful, hilarious, thought-provoking conversation, and I really enjoyed it and hope that we can do it on a regular basis. So I think you're going to really like both of these segments or interviews or conversations or chats, or whatever you want to call them. Brian Kahn coming up later, but right now it's Christian Finnegan and Ophira Eisenberg, two hilarious comedians. You want to learn more about them, check out the show notes. Of course, follow Ophira on Twitter and Instagram at Ophira E. Follow Christian at Christ Finnegan. Go to their websites and buy tickets to see us as soon as we announce wherever we are going to be. Let's get it started, shall we? Thanks again for all of your support this week. Thank you very much for listening. Please tell your friends, give the podcast a review, and check out my sponsors this week, Indeed.com, to hire new people at your firm, Indeed.com/standup, and get an electric toothbrush, which I have and love, from Quip. Get Quip.com/standup, my sponsors this week. Sign up to be a subscriber if you haven't already. Let's go with Christian Finnegan and Ophira Eisenberg together for the first time. Guys, thank you very much for joining me. I'm happy to have, usually Christian and I talk on Fridays, and we are very excited to welcome Ophira into our conversation, into our bedroom. And I don't know where you are. I'm in my bedroom.
I'm in my bedroom.
So
there you go.
So we are all hoping to.
But by the way, Ophira, I've where Pete is right now, I have dubbed the jerk shed. That is where Pete.
And it was so funny and so true that like 800 people listening were like, yes, that's hilarious. That's perfect. That's exactly what's going on in there.
Oh, you're going to get some holiday presents from fans in the form of needle points and some carved wood plaques.
Live, love, jerk shed.
That's right.
So
leave jerk shed.
The three of us are talking about doing some stand-up dates, and so we thought we'd hang out and talk more and let people get to know what it'd be like to hang out with the three of us doing stand-up. So Ophira Eisenberg, Christian Finnegan joining me. Thank you both. I'm very happy to have you both. Thank you.
Pleasure's mine.
Pleasure.
Okay.
Thankful. I'm thankful.
Thank you. Are you thankful? Just getting ready for next week? Pre-thankful?
Okay, so as a Canadian, I've already celebrated Thanksgiving. You know this, right?
Right. When is Canadian Thanksgiving? And does anyone
coincides with your Indigenous People Day, and yes, people care, Christian. People care.
Like, is it a big deal there? Is more what I meant. Like, is it like a real?
Right? Is it real Thanksgiving? God,
well, what I mean is,
damn it, Americans.
From my experience with people of the Jewish persuasion, that they kind of have told, and maybe you can agree or disagree, that Hanukkah only kind of became a big deal because of Christmas, that in and of itself, it's not really one of the major Jewish holidays.
It's not even in the Torah. It's not in the Torah.
So I was wondering if Canadian Thanksgiving was the same kind of deal.
Right. No, the country of Canada I think so. But you're right in saying like it's a very American story. Plymouth Rock, blah blah blah, etc. So the story is a little. I've never actually really nailed down what the Canadian Thanksgiving story is, because what I colored in coloring books as a child was the American Thanksgiving story.
Yeah.
Cornucopias and
Did you do the hand turkey?
We did a hand. Oh yeah. And the food's the same. It's just on a Monday, so it doesn't have this like 40,000 hour meal. It's a Monday afternoon night meal. All of the same food. Monday's the day off. Some people do it on Sunday. Monday's the day off. There's no shopping. Black Friday. There's no football. And the cuisine, depending on who you are, may have, because Canada is very Scottish and British, and then of course French. So there's like Yorkshire puddings and stuff like that. Find its way. That's not unusual. Yeah. But it really, I think the main reason is harvest. It's just earlier, right?
Oh, yeah. The Thanksgiving. It was Monday, October 10th was Thanksgiving in Canada, and I'm looking up like the differences. And so so there are Jews in Canada? That's what I heard?
Well, I left, so there's that one other guy.
What?
Not if I have anything to say, but I don't know.
What are you doing? You're gonna remove the remaining
Jew.
So you already did it, and it's very similar to ours, basically. I mean, it's the same thing, and
it's a ripoff.
Yeah, we did
it's a ripoff. Let's get honest. Let's be real.
So, but do you guys do the thing at your table where you all go around and say what you're thankful for?
We do.
Okay.
My extended family does, and I have to just make up some bullshit because I'm not thankful for much.
I've tried to.
It's been hard the last few years. I'm not going to lie to you.
I've tried to do that with my family, but my entire family just like looks at me and just doesn't do. They don't like those kinds of traditions. I love that idea, and I want to do it. And I always just start it like, I'll start. I'm thankful for it, and everybody else just starts eating.
You're very thankful. Again. You're a very thankful guy, Pete, and so it's just kind of like, here's Pete with his damn gratitude.
Pete, do you make gratitude lists? Do you make gratitude lists?
I absolutely do.
Of course he does.
See, I will tell you something how I feel about gratitude lists. I feel like as someone who feels like life takes things away from me, I feel like if I write down the list, it is basically a list of, I was telling this to Pete, of something that the world is like, great, now I know exactly the thing.
Right, yeah. So you're kind of you're giving them an in almost.
Yeah.
Here's how to hurt me the most. Here are my soft spots.
That's right.
That's very,
approve of that.
Why don't you like them, Christian? I only learned about it after I lost my gig, and my wife actually told me you should write in a gratefulness journey and journal, and I did, and I liked it because it recentered me.
Positive.
I maybe I don't really fully know what they are. I mean, I just by the term gratitude list, I have a vague sense of what that means, but I don't. It's just you're just writing shit that you're grateful for, right? I mean, is it any more complicated than that?
Right now. Well, I love you so much. It's
just that. It's just they charge you $20
because you guys are more similar. That maybe you can just pound on me for this, but this is because that would be funny. But I do seriously not start most days with, but at some point during the day, or if I'm feeling really down, I check in with like the 5 most important people in my life and their health. Girls are good, parents are good, brother's good, wife is good. Okay, that's like a huge, because they won't always be good, and they haven't always been good. And when someone like my dad had a heart attack, or my daughter's scoliosis diagnosis or something, like those were dark days, and at least it's not that right now. I do that a lot. So why don't you go ahead and destroy me for it?
I'm not going to destroy you. It is a wonderful thing, and I genuinely envy you, and that's why you're going to live a full decade longer than I am. I fully appreciate that.
Just a decade?
Hey, you never know. I'm trying to give myself the benefit of the doubt. But it doesn't come naturally to me. I'm not fluent in gratitude.
But here's the thing. This is what I have to say. So I'm not big into getting my hopes up on things, because then you get disappointed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
So the thing, like, I appreciate this, but then I just go, if I checked in every day and I went, this person's okay, that person, and I am so thankful. Then what happens on the day that you have to go, well, that is not good. Doesn't it feel worse?
Yeah, do you have to remove stuff from your gratitude list?
Oh, no, then you do. If someone's ill,
exactly.
if someone is ill or worse, then you end up with, at least I have a house and I have food and I'm living. And then you just keep going like that, I think.
Okay, got it. So there are people out there that are like, I'm just so thankful for my third car. Like that's where they're at.
I feel like this is a plot, a 1% plot to make you feel gratitude for some bullshit so that you don't actually take their stuff.
Oh my God, Christian, we are so on the same page with this. I think all of this manifesting, toxic positivity, gratitude
what you have, like be grateful
about. That's right. It's all about the proletariats being quiet while everybody else is just like, not being grateful at all, just taking and having a great time.
You go ahead and be mindful while I hoover up all the money.
That's right. I think the 1% has mindful meditation. I'm going to say no.
Yes, I'm gonna fully disagree with your conspiracy theory.
All right.
Okay. Based on.
Because I feel like we can come up with a lot of evidence for our side.
Yeah, we can keep going.
I think people don't want as badly. They don't have an impulse or a kind of a desire to steal other people's joy. They want to have joy. We all want to have joy, and we'll find it wherever we can. We'll take it, but we don't necessarily want to take it from other people. Some people do, and it gives them joy. But I just don't feel like people really want to take your shit. They just want to have as much shit and happiness for themselves. They don't necessarily want to take yours and see you.
No, but I think that what they consider their shit overlaps a lot with our shit, and so therefore, basically, I want you to be mindful and grateful and all that, just so you leave me alone, so that I can have all of my stuff, which just happens to be I promise you that all the not quite Zuckerberg level, but the sort of low tier billionaires or whatever, I promise you they imagine that they've earned all that money.
Oh, I agree.
They probably go to bed every night thinking they've earned it.
Yeah. I used to do that joke. I used to do a joke, but whenever a few times you perform in front of like an audience, is really affluent or something. I mean, specifically, I performed I did stand up at Aspen Ideas Fest, and it was like a bunch of billionaires, which you don't get that opportunity very much. But I have a rule with comedy, which is like, you can make fun of rich people for their wealth for 2 jokes. On the third joke, they say, "Hey, I earned this. You take it easy." So I agree. Exactly. I fully agree with that, but I think it's something different. Ophira, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that, right. 2 things. Like, first of all, and then you go, and how did you earn it? And they were like, well, I am my father's son. And that was hard, which it may have been. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I went to 3 meetings today. God damn it.
A trainer. First one was with my trainer. Second one, we had to review. There was like the staff. We had to think about the staff. I remember being in a bookstore, and side by side, it was like on the pick of the staff picks or pick of the week, and there was a book, hardcover book on the minimalist kind of Marie Kondo, the minimalist
that works.
Stuff, happier life. And beside it was insectivore eating, like becoming insectivores, and all these recipes for what have you, deep fried grasshoppers and tick ice cream. I don't even know what they are, but you've seen them around.
Yeah, tick ice cream.
And I was like, oh yeah, you know who this is for? This is for the proletariat. I just keep using the word proletariat because the idea is
Eisenberg over here.
The idea is that we all go, oh, we should get rid of all of our stuff. We need less. So we purge so we can live in smaller and smaller places. So the rest of the real estate can be purchased by all these other people to make their monstrosities. And then we go, oh, and it's good for me to be part of a sustainable food source like insects. And soon we are kind of brainwashed into believing that we can just live in a box with nothing, and every once in a while a window opens and someone lets a fly in, and we're like, I've achieved everything.
Oh my
we can
God.
Pushovers like that fucking Dalai Lama.
That is a horribly dark view. And by the way, apparently I'm fully bought into it because I tried everything. I was a pack rat. I've always been, and I tried I hated that. I hate clutter and messes. It gives me, so that I tried all kinds of different behavioral things. And then that Marie Kondo book really, really worked for me.
Yeah.
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 Did you
Because
hold
I
things
think,
up and say, do I love this? And
Yeah.
What?
And now here you are living in a shed.
the jerk shit.
Well, that's what I mean by living. That's living. Right
Yeah,
there.
what is that? Really? It is your best life. Talk about live, love, laugh.
Do
well,
not want to put a black light in that shed.
there, there is one, and it's always on. So I subscribe to it. I think that after a certain amount of stuff or money, it can become super stressful. Like if you had a yacht, then you had to worry about the staff all the time and staffing it, and same with your plane and your extra house. And I don't think that, after a certain amount, I believe that there's like,
I know this like 100% true. My dad, who is now living in a 1-bedroom condo in Lowell, Massachusetts, and he's happier than he ever has been. And when I was a kid, he had it in his head that he had to have a boat. Like it was very important to him to have a boat.
Right.
And so we bought a boat when I was a kid, and it was nothing but stress.
Right.
It was nothing but stress. We very rarely used it, and he would get so angry that we weren't using the boat. And then when we would use it, it would be horribly unfun for everyone.
This is, yes, the exact same thing happened to us. My dad said boat or pool. We said boat, and putting it on, he had no idea what he was doing. And, you load the boat in off the trailer and the ramp. And when he was trying to, that's easy, but he was trying to put it back on was the first time I ever heard him say the F word. The boat, he just couldn't, and there was a line of people waiting to use the ramp. He could not get it on. He was getting frustrated and probably embarrassed. And he just said, "This motherfucker isn't worth it," or some shit. And so, but
oh my God, you should have gone pool.
But the pool right now, as I was telling Ophira just before, I was just in my pool on November, whatever it is, trying to fix these holes. The point is, having stuff and having a home. When I moved in, when we bought this home, my neighbor is like 100 years old, comes over and goes, "Where'd you move from?" We're like, "We moved from the city." And he goes, "You should have stayed." Owning a home is a nightmare. That was his point. It's like he was miserable about all the stress that, and so I think there's some truth that the more stuff, the more stress, the less happy. But I don't know.
I love renting. I really do. I mean, we own a home, a little cabin, as you know, and it's so pathetic. The shower was like spraying water, like the little joint where the shower head cord meets the shower, and it was spraying water into the bathroom. And eventually, like a year, this was going on, and a little puddle of water would develop next to the shower every time I would shower. And eventually it started rotting the wood. And I said to my wife, it's like, "Hey, make sure that the shower curtain is all the way pulled. Otherwise water comes out." And she just literally reaches up and just tightens the joint, and then it goes away. And she's like, "Why didn't you think of doing that?" Because I'm a renter. I just assume that if things are broken, it's just broken until someone comes and fixes it. It just never would occur to me. But yeah, we just had our house re-sided.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah,
I know. That's like an accomplishment.
Yeah.
What did people do before, YouTube videos, etc., just showing you
I ask that
stuff? I mean, we're
the
just
time.
always doing that constantly. That's something I'm grateful. Try to take it away, universe. Try to take it away.
YouTube DIY videos. Just you try it.
They're game changers. Let me ask you then both, you're making me think of something else then along these lines that I think could be good for us to, I'd love to hear your take on it. This is pretty basic in general and fundamental. Can people change? Have you both changed dramatically one way or another, positively, negatively, acquired new skills? Do you think people can change, Christian?
Yeah, I think they yes, you can change, but I think that it's like you'll change back unless you're constantly keeping it in place. Kind of like Invisalign. Whereas like if you stop wearing the trays, your teeth will go back to the fucked up way that they were.
Yes.
And so it's like you get past a certain age and you're not really going to be able to make permanent changes unless you're like doing upkeep all the time.
Right.
You forget things. That's my little.
So interesting. Okay, I like that point of view. This is what I'll have to say, that you have no choice. You will change. You have no choice. You are constantly having to change, and you think you have some core thing going on. But if you look back, don't you always look back and you're like, how did I do that? How was that possible? How did I not, you're always thinking about how you did react to something as if it was an entirely different person.
I don't know. I look back at the, not just necessarily things I've accomplished, but the motor I feel like I used to have. You know what I mean? The sort of just self-starting thing that I'm just kind of like, who is that guy? How do I find that dude again?
Well, do you feel like when you were on your way up and wherever we are at now, is it still up? I mean, I don't know if that's even fair, but like you're filled with hope and a dream, and you're working towards it, and you're getting a lot of good things happening or something, and then you lose your corporate gig that you loved, and what the hell am I going to do?
Theoretically, this random person we're talking about.
But
end up in a shed.
but you claim, and I know you don't even claim it. You feel it. This is a better life.
But like I keep being reinforced on that belief. I think I'm still lose the direction of up. Like I'm happy. Like I still am growing and finding a lot of joy in this stage of my life with this new thing I'm doing with my work. I'm finding a tremendous joy in it for so many reasons. Yes. So
yes.
Well, you're plotting your own course, which is refreshing and probably gratifying on a day-to-day basis, but in a sort of macro sense can kind of feel a little bit like, all right, I'm just like in a dinghy in the middle of the ocean, as opposed to sort of feeling like I am on a path. Whereas I feel like when you're younger in life, and especially in a sort of corporate type setting, where it's like you can see like, oh, I host this show, and then I'll bump up and maybe get a TV hosting. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like there's a clear, even if you don't ever make it down that path, there's sort of a trail that's been forged. Is that, you do forge a trail? I don't think so.
Yeah, sure.
Do you forge a trail? Sure.
Forge a path. You forge a path. Can you forge a trail?
Path.
I blazed trails, but whatever.
Whatever. But I'm saying what you're doing, it definitely feels a little bit more like you're just kind of, you're in the woods by yourself, which is good in a way, but it can feel a little stressful in kind of a big picture sense, I think.
Right. It's just everything comes back to you, right?
Yeah.
It's like there's no
that's all. No,
there's no thread or tear.
That's all true, but there are so many other things about it that make it. It's like, yes, all that is true, but at least I don't have to be in the car for 2 hours a day, or some other thing. At least you don't have to deal with it. What were you going to say, Ophira?
Oh, I was just going to say, or even the idea that you walk in and you see that person, and you're like, is that person going to get me fired because they just don't like the way I exist? Like, is everything hanging on that person right now? Because that's also extremely stressful. But I think in the beginning, I call it like brave idiot syndrome, where you have like, you just don't know what you're up against, and it's kind of amazing. So you do these incredible acts of like courageousness, bravery, whatever. But you just dive in.
Yeah.
And then the more you know stuff, I feel like, yes, of course, your energy can be tempered, but it's also just like the knowledge of how hard things are, how much work you have to put in,
how many things
hurdles
have to go
along
right.
the way. That's right. That stops you in a way that, like, if you could, I really do think if there was any, eternal sunshine of the spotless mind, is that the right order for it?
Eternal sunshine. Yeah.
To remove that, then you would not feel any of it. You would just be like, whatever. Oh my God, let's do that. Oh my God, let's do that.
Yeah, I've been saying for like years that like I need a major hubris injection. Like I need to just think that like, well, of course the world wants me. Because I feel like that is the path to success in our chosen field.
And that is what all of that toxic positivity, live, love, laugh, blah, 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 is all about. That's what it all is about. It's all about quieting, figure out ways to quiet all that stuff, replace it with like, you're worth everything, you're amazing, nothing standing in your way, over and over and over and over and over. However, if you are like me, which I think in some ways you are, and skeptical about it from the beginning, then you just spend all your time bashing it, and that seems to be fun.
Well, and especially if like your comedic voice is taking the piss out of that kind of thing, it's hard because you know that that kind of thing is what you need, but my whole persona is based upon making like tearing that apart. You know what I mean? So it's not funny. You know, I remember when I originally had lost a lot of weight, which I have recently found. But when I lost a lot of weight, people would say like, why don't you talk about it on stage? And because there's nothing funny about accomplishment at all. Like nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to hear like, oh, you did a thing, unless you're some fucking LA comic.
You didn't want to just get that applause break at the beginning?
Yeah. Oh my God. Good for you. You really achieved something.
Okay, but let me cut through the middle of that, which is there's nothing funny about accomplishment, and it's so much more fun to make fun of this kind of toxic positivity and all of those things. Agreed. I agree with all of that, and I also think that when you're constantly being told that you're special. Then it makes you feel like you are, and you're not actually having to do the work to be special, to stand out, to get a job. So I'm not really, I think in the end, that opposed to kind of telling myself that and convincing myself that otherwise that I don't feel very purpose driven to do at least work, much less, including work at like being a good dad. Like I spend a lot of time thinking about, God, I got to do this or I got to do that better. Because if someone just says you're the best dad, well, I won't be. I'll take that right to heart.
Yeah. Oh well, then I guess I'm done.
Yes,
done. Yeah, great. Yeah. He's fine.
I don't.
If they
have
go
children.
Like he's okay. He's okay, Dad.
Yeah, he's fine. Yeah, you're doing fine. You know, could be better. Do better.
Well, dadding is just like probably everything else, is that you have to stay on it. Like your kids change and you better change with them. I mean, if you keep doing the same material for an 8-year-old, the 16-year-old, you're dead in the water. Gone. No more laughs.
My dad's big dumb aphorism, which I think is really wise, which is that when your kids are young, don't just stand there, do something. And when your kids are adults, don't just do something, stand there. Like, which is kind of, I think,
wise.
Isn't it? Isn't it kind of wise? Yeah, that's like, don't fucking, hover around them and whatever, but just be there as like a resource and as like a solid, like a stone in the ocean, like something to.
Well, I would add, I think that's beautiful and a great thing to think. But I also think when you're just standing there when they're a teenager now, here's the thing that you are doing is standing there. They're watching you in a way that it's different than when they were little, and they're watching you. So you better role model. Like if I'm now being a dick to my wife, they're thinking about it way differently than they would. So it's I love that saying, but I think that you have to make sure that people are constantly watching you. Your kids.
Did you feel like that's the kind of dad he was to you?
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Cool. Yeah. No, like, when, I don't know how much how you and I have talked about it or whatever, but, my mother was severely mentally ill and it was an issue in my life and in my teenage years. And, there were some tough years and, I was really struggling, like, and my dad kind of like, he helped me, like plucked me out and he like made me go to this other school where I could get out of my mom's house. And I went to a performing arts school for a couple of years. And more than anything though, and then I kind of moved when I'd come home for holidays, I would stay with him. And he was just stable. Like there wasn't, like I always used to say, like my mother was like a downed electric wire flopping around in the street and like you're standing in a puddle. Like just, there's always drama every day. Yeah. She's being sued. She's suing somebody. There's people knocking on our door, because we haven't paid bills and shit like that. And so it's just like having just a stable dude, just a guy who's like, you'll come to my house and we'll have our crappy chicken and mashed potatoes and we'll watch Robert De Niro movies. And like, it's just a dependable kind of thing. I mean, I think that's underrated. I mean, that's kind of almost a lot of what I think being a good dad is. It's just sort of being dependable.
Right. I was thinking about how, I don't know what this would be like for you guys, but the generation of my parents versus, because they were much older, me is still that generation where like I can count on my hand how many times I saw them cry.
Yeah.
just totally did not process any feelings or any of that in front of us. It was totally, and I feel like my son is going to like do the opposite. He's going to be like, I remember that one day in January where my mother did not cry. Like, I feel like it's totally
what was it, Christmas?
Like, we are so emotional in front of that kid all the time.
Well, it's a New York apartment. It's a little hard to hide.
Yes, I know. There's nowhere to go.
There's no like laundry room you can go and get drunk in by yourself. Like,
Pull the vodka out of the dryer.
Yeah. Just to be clear, the question on the table was, what are you thankful for?
We're fine. Can we just say we're fine? See how fine
Yeah.
we are. Look at that. You just bring up family and Thanksgiving and look at the fun tangents we went on.
Do you look forward to stuff? That's another basic thing about me. I think I was like 5 when I realized that every day I needed something to look forward to, or it was just going to be, school's kind of like boring. It wasn't, didn't suck. I liked school because I did look forward to something, and I could literally in my head be like, oh, I got gym today and I love gym, or whatever the class was, or anything. That is still me today. What do I have to look forward to today?
Oh,
and that,
me too. 100%. 100%.
are you being?
no, she's not being facetious.
I'm real.
Being
I'm real.
serious, yeah.
No, I know. I
Oh, okay.
always am like, what am I looking forward to? And when I don't have something on the calendar that I'm like, this is a cool show, or that trip, or whatever, I'm like a mess.
Mm.
Yep.
Do I need to answer this?
Yes, you do. Do you look forward to things?
No.
I must. No,
Somewhere deep, dark
I
inside of
I
me,
certainly
there's
do.
hope.
I went to a Knicks game on Monday. I looked forward to that.
Is that where you got that fancy cap?
I got the fancy cap beforehand, but I'm wearing a fancy Knicks cap. Yes. Yes, I mean, I certainly agree with you that I know that maybe in a sort of larger sense, I need a project. That generally is when I'm happiest, is when I have a deadline, or it's just something that I'm working towards. And that's kind of what I feel like between now and the holidays is about for me, is finding out like, what is my 2022 thing going to be that gets me out of bed? But that's probably what the holidays
Well, it's going to
is for a lot
be,
of people.
the cool thing is it's going to involve Ophira and I, because we're going to do some dates.
Get
we're going to
ready.
do some appearances.
No, I said something I look forward to.
Oh, come on.
What the, huh?
Who do you want to
You're
tour?
driving.
Who
I'm
do-
looking forward to you driving.
Who do you want to tour with, asshole?
No, I'm joking. Of course. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm thrilled that we're talking about this, and I can't imagine. I've never done shows with two people whom I feel like their audiences in mind, to the extent that I have one, are aligned in a way that feels organic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Like I did Best Week Ever tours, but it's like everybody thought we were going to be talking about Lindsay Lohan for 45 minutes. And I've done other, you do road gigs, and I don't know if you've gotten this, but you'll do some like clubs on the road, and they'll think like, well, you're a cerebral comic, so we're going to pair you with somebody who's like a party act.
Right.
And it's just, ugh. And so I feel like the kind of people who would like you guys would like me, and vice versa. And that's like a kind of an exciting.
Yeah,
I've never had that before.
I think it'll be awesome, and I can't wait. And just to let everybody know, we're looking locally. We don't know if this is gonna work, and so we're generally looking around where we live, the New York area. So if you have ideas for where we should go, we're looking at venues now. And
all around the tri-state area.
Yeah,
we know it's going to work. Why did you say we don't think it's going to work? We know it's going to work.
Well, to the point, do we fly to Vancouver for a show, and only 200 people show up instead of 1,000 people? I guess is what I meant.
How much are those 200 people paying? Are they paying $2,000?
$1,000 a piece.
We're there.
Yeah,
that's. Okay. I got to. Yeah, those are great points. Reconsider some of this. So finally, let's do a fun. Let's just make fun of or have fun with. I want to this time of year. This is the last time we will talk before American Thanksgiving, and then we head into and then we head into what?
That's qualifier.
I love it.
I just love that you called it American Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
One day you'll call ice hockey hockey. Can't wait.
And and so I wonder how you feel about this time of year, Thanksgiving and Christmas. There's all kinds of childhood shit. Obviously, Ophira has a son. I got kids. Your own kid stuff. But like, do you feel excited, happy, depressed? What do you look forward to? How do you feel about decorations and then, of course, seasonal drinks? Is that a thing? Where are we on pumpkin? What do you want to say about this time of year, Ophira?
Okay, first of all, again, not really doing well with my own white woman brand. I hate all pumpkin drinks.
Oh,
I mean, I will shove them down my gullet if there's only that option. But I don't want. No, you know what I like drinking on a festive holiday? Vodka.
Okay,
That's what I like.
Okay,
Just a nice straight vodka when I'm around people. But I don't think I'm going to be around people I think it's going to be very tiny amounts of people that I'm going to be around because we're still in the world we are. And that is my preference.
Small groups. You don't want to be a huge...
Small groups.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know. I've learned over the course of the pandemic, I'm that introvert extrovert mix where I do well in small groups. Big parties, I'm kind of like overwhelmed and want to stay in the corner with one person.
What's the perfect number?
Question.
6, 5.
6. I like 5.
6.
Yeah. I dig that. Yeah, for sure.
But other than that, love decorations. As a Jew, we get a Christmas tree in my house because I always wanted one my entire childhood, and now we do them, and I love it.
Kristen, how do you feel about what she likes and does not like, and do you have any things that you enjoy about this time of year?
I mean, I'm Cambry, my wife, is very good about sort of instigating the decorations part. I kind of grew up where we would kind of get the Christmas tree on Christmas Eve and we just throw some handful. No, just because they were cheaper. Oh, and they were half off on Christmas Eve, and then we just throw globs of tinsel on it and call it a day. But maybe that's overstating it slightly. But no, but she's been really good about like, no, tonight's the night we're going to put on Christmas music and we're going to like spend the evening decorating the tree. And it's always one of those things where I kind of, not that I don't like it, but I don't really think about it until we're doing it. And I'm like, wow, this is nice. I do appreciate that. Thanksgiving is kind of a weird low impact holiday where it's like the only holiday where there's not any sort of religious, it's just literally a meal. Which in a sense I like more. This year it's going to be really super lame because for me, because I have to fly to Florida like at 6 a.m. on Black Friday, and so we can't really do a full Thanksgiving. So we're just kind of chill. But then I'm going to Massachusetts for Christmas to see my dad. And
Christian will be performing in Boca on
Boca Raton.
Ooh, that doesn't sound so horrible.
It's not so horrible. It's an outdoor show, and it's just one night. And and so I feel like I've just had my booster 2 days ago.
Oh, nice.
So I feel like I'm ready to deal with Florida.
Yeah, deal with Florida.
Yeah, no, I'm actually really looking forward to that. I don't know. I feel like this is going to be a nicer holiday season. Maybe just because I really have nothing to do other than enjoy it. I don't know. I have high hopes for this Christmas season.
Well, as we go,
I just like to point out, Pete, that he said, "I'm looking forward to it."
Yes.
Play back the tape.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm looking forward to more discoveries and conversations about how you feel during this time of year and everything else that we discussed or didn't today, because this was even more fun than I anticipated. I got all worried. I'm like, what are we going to talk about? And then will the technology allow for us to be remotely? Will we hear all these things? And I'm just to say, I'm very happy. I thoroughly enjoyed talking to you both today. I knew it was going to go great. I just wasn't sure how great. That was fun. I love you both very much. And I really appreciate you joining me together.
You're grateful. You're grateful.
Yeah, he's very grateful.
My goodness. I love it. I'm grateful too. Don't take it away.
You really manifested this.
Oh, I didn't record it.
Oopsie daisy.
I took it away. Thank you, guys.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Wait, do you want to anything plugs for this week for you, Ophira? He's going Boca. Do you have anything this week or any coming up that you want to mention on air? I'll plug it off.
What do I have? I'm doing, Christian's on it too. The Party, but that's December 2nd.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'm very excited about that.
Where's that?
So at Littlefield in Brooklyn, I'm hosting a new live game show that's a Jeopardy parody called Geo Party
right.
to Party.
You've done this.
Christian is going to be a contestant.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And I will try to not take it too seriously and actually try to win the trivia, because that is sort of the way my brain works.
Can win. And then I think, so I put, just with the fan thing, I posted a clip from the last one, and this fan of mine on Twitter was like, your template that you got off PowerPoint sucks, and is creating like a custom animation.
I know that dude who says that. Yeah, I did an online Zoom game show with him over the pandemic.
Corey.
Yeah.
So far, what he sent is ridiculous. I hope it's like I can handle customizing it. I'm like, what?
In a good way or a bad way?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's amazing. I'm like, what do I'm afraid when people are nice like that.
Yeah, for nothing.
I just hope Christian loses, and I hope you look very closely at his reaction to see what it's like.
I will be smiling through tears if I lose. My trivia knowledge is.
Oh well, that's very exciting. That sounds fun, and you hosting and him as Christian as a guest makes me want to attend in the audience. Mainly,
you could be on the next one
to yell out heckles. I'll just complain my buzzer doesn't work the whole time. This buzzer isn't working.
What is not funny?
All right, boy. All right, you guys. Thank you very, very much.
Bye.
Christian Finnegan, Ophira Eisenberg, and the three of us on tour. Would you come? Would you join us? If you live in or around New York, Connecticut, or New Jersey, or anywhere in the Northeast, we'll probably come and do shows. So let us know where to go. I think that'd be a really fun show. I would open up. I'd come out. I'd get everybody fired up. I'd introduce either Christian or Ophira, and then we'd all do like a Q&A and have fun and hang out and have drinks. Wouldn't it be fun? Yeah, I think you'll be there, right? I hope. Well, thank you for listening to that one. I think you're really going to like my next conversation as well, because this guy is one of the best journalists in the country, certainly when it comes to all things climate and environmental issues. He's now at Earther, where he is the managing director. He covers the most important issue in the world, climate change. His writing has appeared in almost every major media outlet. He's made appearances on almost every major media outlet as well, and he's just back from the climate talks in Glasgow, Scotland. And he's got a master's in climate and society from Columbia University, where he's also currently a faculty member. And I'm so happy that I got him to join me in conversation, recap his reporting and all the big stories coming out of, and I mean, we barely even scratched the surface, but I think you're going to like it. He's always great. I'm psyched to have gotten him back on the program. I wish he joined me every week. He is that good, but he is also that busy. He's on Twitter at BLCon, Kahn. Let him know that you heard him here. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Kahn is back. There he is, everybody. As promised, one of my favorite reporters, period, much less on the issue of climate and environmental stuff. Brian Kahn joins me just back from Glasgow. Did you know it's in Scotland? Because the whole time you were there, I referred to it as England and got in a lot of trouble with listeners when I made the mistake. Yep.
Almost started an international incident there. It's funny. I was there with a fellow reporter from Earther site that run, and she was also talking a lot about the British and the English, and I was like, "Yo, you gotta keep that down, because I don't want to be run out of this town."
Well, is there any significance to the talks being held in Scotland? Why did Scotland? I don't want to say get the talks like it's the Olympics. How did they decide? It's the UN, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that. The UK, so the United Kingdom, won the talks, won the right to host the talks. And I mean, they tend to be in cities that are not necessarily the big cities. I mean, Paris was maybe like a bit of an exception, but sometimes they're usually in some of the smaller cities. So, it could have been in London ostensibly, but I think that Scotland, Glasgow is kind of an ideal spot just because Scotland's got a lot of wind energy, a lot of things going on there. They have a pretty progressive premier that runs Scotland. So I think there was a lot of things in favor of Scotland compared to, London. And I'm sure the logistical nightmare that would have been if they had done it there.
You'd never been to one of these talks, covered them?
Never been to one. First time. Maybe not, hopefully not the last, or maybe hopefully the last. I can't decide yet.
Well, I mean, what is it? I mean, how would you describe what this 12-day event was?
Yeah, I mean, it's 2 weeks. So like we were there for most of it. We skipped so this year they did a leader summit first. So they had 100+ world leaders show up to like basically talk up what they were going to do about climate change. And then from there, I mean, it's kind of a strange experience. I didn't really know what to expect, or I knew a little bit of what to expect and was still surprised by it because it's essentially, there are these, we talk about it as climate talks, and so these negotiations happening. But the reality is that, most folks don't get access to those talks. They happen behind closed doors in a whole separate section of the conference. And then the part that most people get access to is actually just like a big glorified trade show. So there are country pavilions, there are businesses advertising what they do. And so that's kind of like the chance. That's where I got to spend most of my time, was basically hanging out in the trade show floor, seeing, senators and other folks show up and talk up what they were doing. And then, connecting with negotiators when they were coming out of those back rooms. But it was really like essentially like a 2-track thing of like, the talks happen over here. And then like everyone hangs out over here and drinks like coffee at the Australian Pavilion and listens to talks about like clean steel and stuff.
How do you cover as a reporter, as a journalist, a negotiation if you're not allowed into the room? Which, by the way, should you be? I don't think you should be allowed, because you would ruin the negotiation if you were reporting on it every night. I would bet they would say.
I mean, they probably would say that. And there are like civil society observers. So it's not like, there's just a bunch of like, Joe Biden's not like sitting around smoking cigars with Boris Johnson and like wheeling and dealing. Like maybe they are doing that too. They probably are doing that. But like in the rooms where negotiations happen, civil society folks can sit in there. So like they can observe from a distance and see what's going on. I mean, obviously I'm a reporter. I'd love to be in those rooms and see what was really, firsthand what's going on behind the scenes, but understand that that's the way it doesn't work that way. But the folks, negotiators will come out, they'll brief reporters, like there'll be like a number of impromptu press conferences, in addition to like very formal ones. You can talk to civil society folks. You can certainly work sources while you're there and say like, hey, like, give me the real deal. So there are ways to connect with folks, but like, yeah, it is kind of like a whole separate process from what most folks get to see.
Man, I'd love to just be flying your shoulder, watching you operate, trying to get the real deal, and knowing, as you do, ahead of time what they're going to say. And I mean, it just must be fascinating. And it is, because you've got so many great pieces over at Earther that I've read about, and including several talking about the activism that was taking place. And so what was that like before we kind of dig into it? What was the activism atmosphere? Who was there? What kind of organizations? Were they themselves competing? Did they get close? Did they make an impact?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because like there were people that were there. So they allow activists, some activists can get passes to be inside the venue. So for example, on what was supposed to be the last day of negotiations, the negotiations ended up going overtime. At like, they basically went into overtime. They went an extra day. But on the last day of negotiations, activists staged a walkout because they were just like, this isn't working for us. So that was, mostly led by indigenous folks out in front. People in least developed, countries that are not super developed, that are really under threat from climate change. So there was that kind of vibe. And then, there are the folks that were kind of outside the barbed wire fences that they set up, which was, tons of civil society folks. So Extinction Rebellion, Greta Thunberg's Fridays for Future, lots of folks that were, UK based, but people came from all around the world to protest this or to get engaged with it from the outside. So, yeah, it was a pretty interesting variety of people, both like local, like Glasgow folks that are just like there for it, folks that traveled. I talked to a few people that traveled, hours away from different parts of the UK to be there for that day. And then people that travel from Colombia and other countries all around the world to show up and be a part of this.
So many different parties that have so many different interests, but there's a lot of money to be certainly lost and maybe even gained for different industries, for different companies, for the future solutions. How much pressure do they bring to bear on the decisions that are made during the week? I would feel like all those kind of special interests are strategizing and pressuring the decision makers for years, but once those talks begin, sometimes decisions do get made that are not in line with what lobbyists or special interests certainly wanted. What role do they play before the talks?
I mean, I think they play a big one both before and during. Like, for example, the UK said, the UK presidency that ran the show for this year said, hey, like, we're not going to allow fossil fuel interests into this talk. So in years past, like, they've had pretty much carte blanche to walk around the halls of power.
Really?
Yeah, like a couple of years ago when they had these talks in Poland actually, like it's a big coal using country. They filled up an entire room with coal as like an exhibit to be like, coal's great. Yeah, it was bizarre. I mean, total like through the looking glass to be like these are climate talks and like here's a room literally.
That sounds like a fire. I don't know. It sounds like a fire hazard. Can I just go in there and be like, oh yeah, you guys brought a lot of coal. I brought a lighter.
Yeah, I think that's that's a fair thing. Yeah, a little lighter fluid, some you can going, burn down the talks. It was extremely weird. Like, and last year, like 2 years ago, they were held in Spain. Spain's biggest polluter sponsored the talks. Like this year, the UK government said like, no way, like we're not going to do that. But countries are able to put people on their delegations. NGOs can like pick folks to show up on their delegations. And it turns out that fossil fuel companies had 500 delegates in the talks, and that was the biggest delegation, bigger than like the country delegations when you sort of add them all up. So, they were in there working the halls of power. But it's not just fossil fuel companies. I mean, there are all sorts of folks there to sort of ply their wares, whether it's, some of it's really good stuff like green steel. Like we need people there to advocate for green steel. We need people to advocate for these industrial policies, but certainly some people that are, selling kind of like snake oil type things as well. So, they're there, and I'm sure they have influence on like individual delegations and, influence on the talks themselves, just as much as, if not more than civil society.
I know what green steel is, but a lot of listeners don't. Would you mind just telling us what green steel is while I act like I've heard of it before?
I mean, honestly, like it's nerdy, but I think green steel is really cool. One of my biggest regrets of COP was actually someone brought like a plate of green steel. So there's a couple companies working on it. But someone brought like a plate of it to COP, and I did not get to touch it. I really wanted to hold the green steel. But what it is basically like, so when you make steel, you need high heat. You need coal to make steel because you refine it down to get a little bit of carbon out of it. So it's a really carbon intensive process. Like steel itself is responsible for up to 9% of the world's overall carbon emissions, which is just huge. Like the US is around 15% total. So steel is essentially a country of carbon emissions. So there are a couple of ways to clean that up, including like these electrical arc furnaces that use electricity as opposed to, coal power. And then there are other techniques that are even more advanced that are kind of in the early phases. And so that is something that is currently like a huge area of interesting industrial work to basically decarbonize steel. And if we do that, I mean, it's a game changer. And so a few places have started to do that, and like that's really exciting.
Yeah, that's interesting because I mean, when we talk about building, green building, sustainability, you can't build skyscrapers out of wood. You need concrete and steel, and they're both so carbon intensive. How do you build, buildings that can also withstand climate change that aren't themselves creating more of a problem? I guess. How did I do? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it's good. Although you can actually build like wood skyscrapers. There's a movement around to make that happen.
You might have written about that, actually. I feel like I read that, but that just sounds so bizarre to me.
It is a little bizarre. I mean, but the steel is tried and true, but I think that it points to like, decarbonizing steel is like one of those big things. So like seeing that kind of stuff at COP, like that's great. Like those people should be like advocating for those kinds of policies. And I think it's really, when it comes down to like business solutions, like that's a really important one.
So the criticism of these summits are often that people go in with good intentions. They try to make a deal. They make a deal verbally, and then they just go home and burn mountains. And yesterday, I saw a headline and read here on the podcast about the Biden administration selling, doing a lease auction for oil and gas in the Gulf, maybe the biggest one ever, like a week after making certain commitments. You have a piece at Earther titled "Glasgow Climate Pact has loopholes so big an oil tanker could get through them." So, how do you respond to those criticisms of this summit and what really was agreed to and can be held to, and what is just just people handshaking and patting backs and nothing really happens?
I mean, I think it really speaks to one of the challenges, because like to get an agreement out of any of these talks, you got to have every country in the world sign off on it, and you have a lot of competing interests. So you have countries like the US, but also like, Saudi Arabia, Russia, like countries that are really fossil fuel dependent. And then you have countries like Tuvalu and, Malawi, countries that are really at risk of climate change. And so you have these really like interesting tensions that sort of pull in these agreements, which is how you end up with an agreement that for the first time ever mentions that we should phase out coal, or phase down coal, actually is what it says, and, quote unquote, what it calls inefficient fossil fuel subsidies. It's never been mentioned in a climate agreement in 26 years of these talks, which is honestly mind blowing to me. But so that's like a big deal. Like on the one hand, that they put that in the language of this pact, but at the same time, like, does that mean that, we're going to end coal use, that we will end fossil fuel subsidies? Like, absolutely not. So it shows that, we've made this progress, and that the progress is so incremental that there's still just so much more work to be done.
So what are some other positive things, at least, that came out of it outside of that, what you're talking about with coal?
I mean, honestly, like, the thing that I'm most excited about that came out of this is not what came out in like the big agreement that they signed, but a side agreement that I think is really important. So there are these 10, there are basically some countries led by Denmark and Costa Rica, as well as a couple states that were thrown in there, like Quebec and Canada, and then California and the US, signed on to create a coalition, an alliance that has set an end date for fossil fuel extraction, or oil and gas extraction specifically. And that to me is like, that is concrete, and that is real, and that is a big, big deal, because, when it comes down to it, like, what's the best way to end climate change? It's to stop digging up fossil fuels and burning them. And so these, this group of countries and states basically said, hey, like, this is it. We're setting a target dates, and we will work towards that. And it's concrete, and you can only be in it if you have a real plan to actually do it. And so that to me is like, we need more of that. And that is like the biggest success that came out of this in my eyes, hands down. I want to see like more countries join that, frankly.
You caught up with some Republicans while you were there, some Republican congressmen who were there. It was interesting to see. There was a Democratic delegation. Nancy Pelosi was there. I think it was AOC, was there, and some other.
AOC was there. I saw her for like 2 seconds before UN security was like, whoosh,
not really. But you did end up catching up with and talking with Congressman Dan Crenshaw or others as well?
Yeah, we talked to Crenshaw. It was really funny. Like, we caught them right as they basically arrived, and we're walking around the pavilions, and they were pretty low key. The Democratic delegation was much bigger and was less low key, I think, because of having like AOC and Pelosi there. But the Republican one, they were just there as guests of a basically pro-nuclear group. They were just kind of flying under the radar and walking around. Like,
that's interesting because back here at home, there were certainly interviews happening in media where Republicans were being asked about it. But most importantly, as you know, I'm sure the second highest ranking Republican congressman in the House, Steve Scalise, basically denied climate change. And so I was going to try to ask a question about where the Republican Party is in America on climate change. It does seem like they are turning the corner with their rhetoric and more and likely acknowledging it in some places. And then in some places, they're not at all. Depends who you're talking to and what media outlets. But most importantly, even those who are acknowledging the problem 30 years too late are not on board with the solution. Or it seems like I'm hearing a lot about nuclear, which you have a great piece about, you've written a lot about over the years, and not about more fundamental practical solutions that are actually implementable right now. Because, of course, beside the danger of nuclear, as you write about, it's unaffordable and it's really, really hard to get done.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny because, like, basically, like, when I talked to Dan Crenshaw, like, his line was that, we're here to talk about rational solutions, and tried and true things and all that. And it was like, so his pitch was, we're here to talk about nuclear power, carbon capture. So basically, when you burn a fossil fuel,
right,
you capture carbon right at the source, and, Texas natural gas. And the thing is, like, those are not, the first two are not necessarily irrational climate solutions, but they're not things that are ready for prime time. I mean, nuclear power, the fleet in the U.S. is really old. The only plant under construction in the U.S. is up to a $28.5 billion cost. It's way over cost and time. So installing new nuclear power, I mean, there's certainly discussions to be had around that, whether it's a good idea or bad. It's carbon free, though. We know that, but it takes so long to deploy that, like, it's not necessarily ready for, at the scale that we need in the time frame we need it. And then the carbon capture stuff, again, like, that's a pretty important thing, but it's not the same deal. Not ready anywhere close to the scale that we need, and relying on it and banking on it to work is sort of one of those things where, we're setting it up to say, like, well, if we continue business as usual and just capture all this carbon eventually, it'll be fine. But, like, we don't know that that's going to happen. So, as far as tried and true and rational, it's not it's not something I'd put all my eggs, or even like, more than one egg in that basket.
How important was it for the U.S. or other, of the biggest emitters to come with their plans and say what they were going to do? And the fact that we had an opportunity, maybe still do, to pass some major comprehensive legislation that would include mitigating the climate crisis to some extent. And we have talked about that. You and I have covered this, but they don't have much of an agreement. The U.S. government, didn't have, our plan written into law. And so how serious can we be, much less other countries?
I mean, I think it's an open question. I think everyone's kind of in this phase of, it's like people are just basically waiting to see who blinks first, or countries, I should say, are waiting to see who blinks first. There's this really interesting idea that's out there, this idea of a fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty, similar to the nuclear non-proliferation treaty. And I think it's a really interesting idea as like a way to address climate change when it comes to like this problem, because, there's just this sort of issue where it's like, well, if we don't dig up the fossil fuels and make money off them and grow our economy, then like Russia will, or Saudi Arabia will, or fill in the blank will. But if you have this treaty in place where you say like, hey, like we mutually all agree that this has got to end, we're all signatories and we're all going to like, be part of this, then I think that sort of reduces some of that competitive tension and potentially even brings in more cooperation to meet that mutual goal of not frying the planet. So, that's what I think that's the big challenge right now. Like you need, on the one hand, credible climate policy at home. The reality is that most places don't have that in place. It's not just the U.S. and failing to sign the Build Back Better Act into law yet, or pass it, let alone sign it into law. It's that you need that credibility everywhere. And I think that when it comes to like, how does that lock into the international process? It's coming up with ideas where we all we agree that, fossil fuels are causing the problem. And so how do we mutually agree to wind down their production?
If you take all of this away and you just look at the science, what do the scientists think about what was agreed to? Don't they just kind of look at the current trends? They chart the data, temperature increases over time and so on. They look at what's causing the most damage, and then they can predict what the planet's temperature is going to be in 20 or 30 years. And I think there's a pretty wide agreement at this point on that, but maybe I'm wrong. And so what has been the reaction? Is there been a scientific consensus in terms of a reaction to what was agreed to and what actually needs to happen to prevent, what do we say now, the worst outcomes, although they seem to be getting worse all the time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth it. I mean, like anything that gets, the hotter it gets, the worse it gets. I mean, like there's the worst of the worst, like we don't do anything. And then there's just degrees of badness, depending on how much longer we go down this path. In terms of like the outcome here, I mean, it's tough, because on the one hand, you have these plans that countries have put forward, and these pledges where they say we'll reduce emissions X% by X year. So scientists have modeled what that will look like. And we know that based on what came out of this agreement out of Glasgow, in theory, if everyone follows through and does what they promised they'll do, the planet will still warm by 2.4 degrees Celsius, or, whatever that is, about 4 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's not like the catastrophic worst of the worst, but it's not meeting the Paris Agreement targets. It's certainly not meeting the stretch goal of limiting warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And so, I think it means there's still work to be done just from the pledges alone. And then when it gets down to, the politics of it and actually cutting those emissions, I mean, it's clear that like there's still a lot of work to be done to make those pledges a reality. Well,
listen, I love talking to you and even more reading you, because there's so much more nuance and details, and I love your writing and the way you do it. And so you posted a lot of pieces from there. And I'm so glad that you went, that Earther sent you, and I'm psyched that we got to talk. I barely scratched the surface on your reporting from there, so people should go and read it all. And, of course, follow Brian on Twitter. Before I let you go, what is your most recent piece is about an upcoming Netflix movie. And this piece is Don't Look Up is a climate change movie in disguise. I actually didn't read this yet, but I'm about to as soon as I get off with you. What is this?
Don't Look Up. I'm so hyped for this movie. Like, I am stupidly excited.
Oh, there's already a trailer for it. Leonardo DiCaprio. All right.
Oh,
Jennifer Lawrence.
It's great. It's like J-Law. There are like cameos from like Ariana Grande. Like, it looks, Jonah Hill's in it, Meryl Streep. Like, it has like an amazing cast. And it's a movie about a comet coming for Earth, and these scientists find it and they tell everyone, and no one believes them. And then they're eventually like, well, what if we profited off of it? It's about a comet, but the comet is us, in my estimation. So I'm super excited. It's coming out next month, so everyone should.
Wait, was this purposely, do you think, a metaphor for climate?
Absolutely.
Even though it's about a comet, will the dumber ones amongst us realize that?
I don't know. Well, if they read Earther, they will.
If they read Earther, they will. That's a good plug. And of course, Leonardo DiCaprio has been an activist on the issue, so that's got to be why he signed on to it. So.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's going to be a good one. So
awesome.
Check it out.
Awesome. Brian Kahn, such a great pleasure to get to talk to you again. It's been way too long. I really appreciate your time today, man.
Oh, so good to be on.
Brian Kahn, everybody. BL Kahn on Twitter, at BLKAHN on Twitter. Learn more in today's show notes. Sign up to be a subscriber, a paid subscriber. Can't do it without your support. If you haven't, it'd be great to see some new subscriptions come through over the weekend, or if you're listening on Friday. Thanks for listening all week. Great week of shows. A bunch of first-time guests joining me here as well. And I've got plans to be posting shows all of next week, as I pretty much always do, even though I will take a couple days off, like hopefully you will as well, for Thanksgiving. But I'll be posting each and every day, I'm sure. So we'll see. Who do you want to hear? I've already got some guests booked and a couple of interviews actually already, I think, in the can for next week. Really excited to introduce you to Professor Claire Potter, who's got a new book out about politics and media and so many more. So thank you very much. I'm going to wrap it up now. I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to say have a great weekend. I'll see you on the Discord platform. If you are a subscriber, check that out. And I thank you very much, guys. I love you. You're not alone. Whatever you're going through, you're not alone. Reach out, connect, make friends, and I'll talk to you next week right here on Stand Up. John Carroll, please sing us out, my friend.
You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up. We got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up. You got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well, and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.